I really feel some days I'm backed up in a corner that I have no one to turn to.
Tonight, she spoke out about unaccounted for funds at Long Plain First Nation. Now her future looks uncertain.
It's a beautiful fan and a lot of work went into that.
We're looking to solve the mystery of who owns this eagle fan retrieved from a dumpster.
There's going to be rebirth and newborns and the fawns.
And with the winter solstice upon us, it's time to welcome a new year. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Starting in British Columbia, the company building the Coastal GasLink pipeline was in court today seeking an amendment to an injunction that ordered a blockade to be dismantled to open access for pipeline workers. Earlier this week, a judge imposed that injunction at the Unistoten camp. But soon after the ruling, a new blockade was set up just 20 kilometers down the road, preventing the company again from getting to the site. Today, a judge granted the amendment to the injunction, so it now includes all blockades at the Unistoten camp. There are now about 40 people at both camps, and they say, injunction or not, they aren't going anywhere, and they expect more support.
The camp is getting closer to having some more beds put in there. You can see the structure in behind me, and they'll be putting in some bunks and kind of getting ready for more people that are coming. There's an awful lot of people that are still coming to the camp, and we want to make sure that we have the support here for them to be able to stay.
To Manitoba, a First Nation employee raised an alarm recently when she noticed something in the finances of her department didn't seem to add up. But things did not go the way she expected. Ashley Branson explains.
Jacqueline Daniels is worried about keeping her job. She's managed the Long Plain First Nation post-secondary program since the summer of 2015. She took over the job after her predecessor was elected to council. Right away, she spotted some financial problems.
So I started to see questionable transactions, questionable paperwork, and that was over a year or so as I was getting into trying to figure out the program. As I was finding things that didn't seem that were questionable, I guess, as I was finding files, I was starting to report them to the chief and the council.
Council commissioned an audit in late 2016, Chief Dennis Meaches confirmed. He also discussed the issue during an appearance on a weekly community radio program called Res Talk.
There was a question that was posed about the post-secondary investigation. So I basically shared the information on what was transpiring at that time, yeah.
When the audit was completed in September, it confirmed there was a lot of money not accounted for.
We release annual reports every year, and it's disclosed in that report, $1.2 million.
Long Plain holds open community meetings every year. In early December, at one of those meetings, Daniels spoke out publicly about the 2017-2018 annual report. The report states, "It is public knowledge within the First Nation, the previous post-secondary administration is under investigation for misappropriation of funds within the post-secondary program. An estimated $1.2 million is being investigated in terms of transactions and questionable decisions." Long Plain councillor Liz Merrick is the previous post-secondary administrator. After Daniels questioned council at the public meeting, asking what action was taken in response to the report, council members passed a motion to suspend her from her job. The chief was the only member of council that voted against that motion.
I feel I am being punished for speaking out. I don't have any personal motivation to have brought this stuff forward. I just brought it forward because it's the right thing to do.
Chief Meaches called it an administrative leave, not a suspension. Either way, Daniels has no access to her office and cannot go to work.
I really feel some days I'm backed up in a corner that I have no one to turn to. within the nation. However, there's one individual who's been a constant support for me, and that's my chief.
Jackie's a program manager, and she's managing a program that faltered, that had some fairly significant deficits, and did the best to manage it. And I know, I for one would have a very difficult time of imposing any sanction against her.
Meaches wouldn't say what his post-secondary program manager's future would look like. He said he's advised council members not to make any more decisions related to Jacqueline Daniels. He did say he hopes to implement a whistleblower policy that protects the rights of anyone who comes forward with concerns in the future. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We want to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, a holiday mystery. But first, here's tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east coast, we've got 2 and mixed sun and cloud in St. John's, 12 and rain in Halifax. Nukshawak's in at -19 and clear. Kuujjuaq, rain or snow at -12. Chibougamau is snowing and -2 in Saguenay as well. 0s for Toronto and London, 0 for North Bay and Ottawa. -15 in snow in Big Trout Lake, -7 in snow in Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout. Clear and -21 in Churchill, snow in Puckatawagan and -17. -4s for Gimli and Winnipeg and snow, -5s in Barons River and Princess Harbour. North Battleford, sunny and -8 and snowing in Saskatoon. Uranium City, snow, -13, snow in -16 in Stony Rapids and -10 in snow in La Roche. Welcome back. The city of Thunder Bay saw no shortage of news this year. Willow Fiddler takes a look back at what 2018 meant for the often troubled city.
The beginning of 2018 brought an end to challenging times for former police chief J.P. Levesque. In January, a judge acquitted the head of the Thunder Bay Police Service on criminal charges for his involvement with the police investigation of former city mayor Keith Hobbs. The police board saw it as a win.
We're all feeling really good for going forward for the reputation of the city and the reputation of the police.
But the troubles for Thunder Bay Police were far from over. January 28th marked 1 year since 34-year-old Barbara Kentner was hit in the stomach with a trailer hitch. She died months later. Community members came together to remember and honor Barbara.
I don't want anyone to forget what happened to her.
Braden Bushby faces second-degree murder charges for her death. In March, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director found 2 Thunder Bay Police investigators guilty of disorderly conduct and neglect of duty for their work in the death investigation of Stacey DeBungy. It was his case that prompted the OIPRD to review 37 more police investigations involving mostly Indigenous people, and a good indication of what was to come.
Because of all these facts, I'm here to call for the resignation of Keith Levesque. And if he refuses to resign, I'm calling for the board to fire him.
The board did not fire him, and Levesque quietly announced his retirement not long afterwards. Angelique Eaglewoman made history when she was appointed the first Indigenous Dean of Law in Canada 2 years ago. She then made headlines after resigning over alleged systemic discrimination at the hands of her employer, Lakehead University. She filed a $2.6 million lawsuit against the institution, which is still before the courts. Jingle dress dancers came together to share cultural teachings with students, but it meant much more than that.
Been a lot of a negative atmosphere around the rivers and the 7 students inquest and all that stuff, and I was beginning to see it was all negative stuff, so I wanted to bring some positivity and some culture and just some pride, some identity.
And what better way to spend your summer holidays than getting up at 6 a.m. military style? That's just one way young Indigenous people in the area were supported and celebrated this year.
Well, I thought it was important for these Indigenous youth to see Indigenous members within the Canadian Armed Forces, and I thought it was a good opportunity to pass on what knowledge I know, be it the military or what traditions I know.
The OIPRD report, Broken Trust, was released in December. The 2-year investigation into the Thunder Bay Police Service told us what business as usual looked like for Indigenous people.
Overall, I found that systemic racism exists in Thunder Bay Police Service at an institutional level.
Following closely behind that report was the report by Senator Murray Sinclair on the police board. It echoed similar findings, and some help was sent in to deal with it.
We acknowledge unequivocally that systemic racism exists in both the service and the board.
But among the chaos, other milestones were reached. Sylvie Hoth was named Thunder Bay Police's first female police chief, and Selena Reitberger was appointed the first Indigenous chair of the police board. In January, we'll continue bringing you coverage from Ontario's north. On January 15th, we find out if Braden Bushby stands trial for the death of Barbara Kentner. From the land of the sleeping giant, all the best for a safe and happy holiday season. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News.
Whether you celebrate the holiday season or not, gift giving is an important part of Indigenous cultures. But what happens when a gift loses its way? Here's Brittany Hobson with an incredible story out of Winnipeg.
Decked out in an oversized winter jacket and black sunglasses, this pseudo-Santa is not the jolly guy children write letters to every year. But he does come bearing gifts, even if they are carried in a garbage bag instead of a velvet sack. Earlier this week, this anonymous man dropped off a mysterious present at APTN headquarters in Winnipeg. Inside the navy velvet case, an incredible surprise. A handmade eagle feather fan, completely intact. Included is a handwritten note saying the fan was found in a dumpster about 6 years ago. Apparently, it's been sitting in a garage since then. The author asks APTN to help find its rightful owner. The front of the eagle fan features some specific beadwork. We aren't showing this in hopes of returning the fan to the original owner, who would be able to describe the design.
Somebody went into a lot of trouble to glue these eagle feathers in the appropriate places that they're in.
Charlotte Nolan, a Two-Spirit sun dancer, believes the fan belongs to a jingle dress dancer. She says someone would have spent hours creating this piece.
It's a beautiful fan, and a lot of work went into that. Delicate work, the beadwork, you know, somebody took the time to bead that for somebody and put it together for somebody.
Nolan says carrying eagle feathers gives First Nations people a way to connect to something bigger.
It's because grandmother and grandfather eagle, for us, they're the ones that fly the highest. They're the ones that are closest to the Creator.
Each fan made is designed specifically for the dancer. To lose or have one stolen would be like losing a part of yourself, says Nolan.
Hopefully it'll get back out to the powwows and, you know, be able to dance once more.
To claim the fan, or if you may know who it belongs to, you can contact me by email at bhobson, that's BHOBSON, at aptn.ca, or contact our APTN National News Facebook page. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
This is the time of year many people are thinking of Christmas and the New Year, but it's winter solstice that matters to many Indigenous people the most. Daryl Stranger has more.
The winter solstice happens every year on December 21st when the Earth is farthest away from the sun. With it comes the shortest day and longest night of the year. In cultural terms, the winter solstice represents so much more. Instead of using a calendar, Indigenous people use the solstice to determine the new year. It happens when the North Pole is tilted 23.5 degrees away from the sun. The winter solstice brings with it the prospect of spring being close, as Elder Peter Atkinson explains.
There's going to be rebirth and newborns and the fawns and that, and there's going to be new grass in the forest and that, and flowers and that's always going to be like that, eh? It always was like that, and so that's a part of the solstice is knowing that that all of this is going to happen and acknowledging that.
Here in Winnipeg, the Odennis Circle has a sundial and naked eye observatory that shows the significance of the sun and stars amongst Indigenous people. This year, the solstice was in full effect at 4:23 p.m. Central Time. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
As we reported yesterday, the First Nation teams remaining in the Keystone Junior B Hockey League in Manitoba filed an injunction to stop southern-based teams from forming their own league. A new league is already in action. This afternoon in Winnipeg, a judge denied the injunction, allowing the all non-First Nation Capital Region Hockey League to continue playing. That means the Keystone League will continue, but only with the First Nation teams. Well, Christmas is just a few days away and the crunch is on for many shoppers, but if you're thinking about gifting an Indigenous item, how do you know if it's authentic? APTN's Amber Bernard reports.
Selling Indigenous gifts made by Indigenous artists is something Ashley Regan takes pride in. And with the holidays here, she wants to help shoppers make informed decisions when purchasing Indigenous items.
It's definitely, it happens where there are a lot of, items out there that aren't Indigenous and people want to pull them off as Indigenous, and I understand it can be a bit complicated, but definitely ask questions and just become as informed as possible.
This includes researching the tags on items and asking the sales rep for more information. She also says supporting local Indigenous artists is a good idea this holiday season.
Also, it's important to support those traditions, right? So if you buy local, if you buy a pair of moccasins made in Saskatchewan, you're supporting an individual who's needing that money to support their families and themselves, and that's just their way of life. So it's really important that we can ensure that everyone's taken care of in the community.
If you find yourself purchasing Indigenous-inspired items this season, Regan says the best way to find out who made it is to ask as many questions as possible.
If you have a choice, make the choice to support local, not overseas.
Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
A wicked windstorm swept across British Columbia's west coast, knocking out power for hundreds of thousands and ripping apart an iconic pier in White Rock, forcing a dramatic rescue.
What kind of wind conditions, what kind of conditions in general do we have to have before we say the pier should be closed so that people aren't caught down there? And of course that was the case. I have to thank the rescue crew that managed to pluck that one fellow off of it.
Sailboats broke free in the heavy winds and crashed into the promenade. One section of the pier was crushed, leaving a man stranded on the other side. A helicopter had to lift him from that promenade and bring him to safety. White Rock's mayor says it could be months before the pier is fixed, and damage in the area is estimated to be in the millions. So far, the storm has been blamed for the death of one person. Time for another quick break, and here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. In northern Alberta, minus 16 in High Level and Peace River, sunshine there. Lots of sun down south too, minus 6 in Edmonton, minus 4 in Calgary, minus 2s for Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, 5 in rain in Vancouver and Campbell River, minus 3 in Quesnel. Dace Lakes, minus 18 and some snow, minus 18 but sunny in Fort Nelson. Old Crow, snow, minus 21, 22 and sunny in Mayo, Watson Lake, minus 25. Minus 24 in Norman Wells, clear skies, minus 25 and clear in Fort Simpson. That's not. Minus 17 in Tuck, and snow. Paulatuck is minus 14 and snow. Minus 30 and clear in Baker Lake. Chesterfield's minus 29 and clear. Minus 24 and clear in Resolute, minus 28 and clear in Arctic Bay, minus 14 and snow in Iqaluit. Welcome back. We have a special treat for you to cap off tonight's news. One of our favorite crooners, Dawn Amaro. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a safe and joyous weekend.
only one thing I am missing. Well, all that I want this Christmas, all that I need this year, won't be wrapped in ribbons, won't be hidden beneath the tree. Maybe you're all I need. All I need. Remember when I was a child, restless nights on Christmas Eve. Couldn't wait to wake up and instead see my presents everywhere. Now those days are gone. With tonight I am restless, just waiting for you to come on. Well, all that I want this Christmas, all that I need this year, will be wrapped in ribbons, won't be hidden beneath the tree. Maybe you were all I need. You're all I need. Christmas is coming, the New Year's just